Okay, this video assumes that you've listened or were in the class about the Constitution, so I assume you know what the Constitution is and that it's a set of rules for our democratic system in Australia. So let's talk about our democratic system. We have the Queen as our head of state. We are a constitutional monarchy. What that means is we still have the Queen, but we do have our Constitution. The Governor-General is her representative in Australia, and he or she lives at Yarralumla in the Governor-General's house while they are in term. So they are recommended to be appointed from our Prime Minister to the Queen, and then the Queen gets to say yes or no. The executive government down here is the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. So they are that is formed from the party that has the majority in the lower house from an election. And then there's a parliament, which is all the representatives who've been voted in the House of Reps and the Senate by the Australian voters in the democracy that we have. So this is the setup of how it actually works. We also have something called the separation of powers. What that means is that our laws are not created and enforced and adjudicated on by the same people. We actually separate who is allowed to make the laws, enforce the laws, and judge those laws, whether or not they're appropriate. And the reason why we do that in our Constitution is to ensure there's clarity of roles and stakeholders who are responsible for different sections as a cross-check mechanism. It changes where the power lies, and that means you reduce corruption in the democratic system and retain power in the hands of the people versus moving it into the hands of other people. So we've got our judiciary system, and the High Court is a part of that. The executive government, again, that is your cabinet and your prime minister, and they put the laws into action. And then there's the parliament who makes the laws, and that's all our representatives. I will be doing another video on making laws themselves, so don't stress too much about that right now. But this concept is really important to understand. We have this separation of powers. Very important to understand. The other thing about our democratic system in Australia is that we do have 3 levels of government. So remember this, 3 separation of powers, 3 levels of government. This is important because the stakeholders are different at different levels of government. We've been talking about federal parliament, and that's where the Prime Minister is and the Cabinet and the Executive and the main Parliament. But then each state and territory has their own parliament as well, and then we have local councils. And as you can see, the local councils are a lot more than the state and territory parliaments, and of course there is only one federal parliament. This becomes important in who is responsible for what. So, thinking about your assignment, you need to be careful about who your stakeholders are in your issue. Is your issue a local issue? Is it a state or territory issue? Or is it a federal issue? Or it might be a school issue, which of course isn't in our Australian democratic system, that's in our school democratic system. And we'll be talking about that in class. But you need to be very conscious about which stakeholder you need to talk to about what issue, and that will be another video. Thank you.